This is Kirk, the bariatric carnivore. Well, let's talk a little bit about big pharma advertising and why it is completely adulterating the news that you watch and how they control it. When you think about it, why in the heck would anybody be selling Chantix or any other drug on TV news? It makes no sense when you really think about it, because the people that are watching that can't purchase it. I cannot purchase a prescription drug directly. I have to go to my doctor, who may or may not prescribe it. My insurance company may or may not cover it, and the pharmacy may or may not sell it to me. I mean, there's a lot of different steps that you have to jump through in order to get a prescription drug. Yet they're selling this stuff. Matter of fact, they're making up fully 30 to 50% of all the ad revenues. That basically all the ads that are being sold on news shows and networks are big pharma, and they're bizarre ads when you really think about it, because they may or may not talk about the health condition. There was one drug that I remember seeing that was for a peculiar form of cancer that basically affected maybe 500,000 people across the country. Why in the heck are they selling that on CNN? It made to me no economic sense, because the odds of anybody that was actually suffering from that was practically negligible. Why were they doing it? Well, what they're buying, in essence, is the news. This is why you cannot find any good stories on how to get healthy on any of the major news networks. They're always going to be paying attention to different diseases, different things that could be happening, but they're not going to be telling you about how to cure it. What a pharmaceutical agent does is basically mask the symptoms. There's a company that created a cure for hepatitis C. I mean, absolutely cured it. Not treated it, but cured it. And Chase Manhattan Bank said, wow, that's great. I think you guys have done a phenomenal service for mankind. You're going to save millions of lives, but we're not investing in it because there's no money in cures. There's only money in treatments. And that is a stark reality that Wall Street, nobody wants to put money into anything that will actually stop a chronic disease. They want you as patients forever. They don't want you to die, but they don't want you cured either, because a patient cured is a patient lost. So they're not going to be talking about how to end certain things. Think about the drug Vioxx. I mean, here's a drug that for 5 years was the number one drug on the planet. Heavily advertised. Everybody wanted to get Vioxx because it took care of something really important: people's chronic pain. And it didn't make you drowsy, took care of the pain. There was just one problem: it killed you with a heart attack. I mean, it seriously increased your risk of heart attacks. And people knew about it, but for 5 years, nobody talked about it. It wasn't until the manufacturer of Vioxx pulled the drug off the market that news started covering all the downsides of it. But they had known it for years, but they couldn't say anything about it because they were paying the piper. They were buying ads on TV. They basically bought silence on this. Look at the drug Chantix. I'll include a link to the Chantix drug. 80% of that ad is on the horrible negative side effects that are very, very, very likely to happen. Yet, they're advertising this drug, even though they're saying, hey, this thing can make you want to blow your brains out. But why in the heck are they running that ad? Because they're trying to buy the silence of the news media that could be talking about all those side effects. But there was no stories against Chantix until it was voluntarily withdrawn by the manufacturer in 2021. What's really amazing to me was one of the most disgusting spectacles of big media's, being able to be flat out bought off by a pharmaceutical giant, is when 60 Minutes in January 2023 ran an infomercial basically for Ozempic, and talking about, hey, there's no way you can change, there's no way you can lose weight on your own because it's a genetic condition. That is what they're doctor expert said, completely ignoring the fact that there are lots of people on this planet that lose weight and keep it off forever, eating healthy diets. There's a bunch of people that don't get fat because they eat a healthy diet. Yet she's saying that it's genetic and we can't control it. So the only thing that you can do is give people Ozempic. And what's the real point of that advertorial? It wasn't really a news story, it was an advertorial. What the whole point of it was to try to put pressure on government and insurance companies to cover Wegovy and Ozempic. That's what they were trying to do. And they were utilizing the force of 60 Minutes and the credibility that you give it because you think it's an honest news show. But it isn't. None of them are, because they're all bought and paid for by Big Pharma. Fully 30 to 50% of the newsroom budget, the salaries that are being paid for all that high-priced talent is dependent on Big Pharma money. And if they ever attack Big Pharma or they start pushing cures that can actually get you off of those drugs, they're no longer on the air. They're not getting paid all that amount of money, and they know it. As a result, all these different systems are working with a complete and total callous disregard for your health. There's no other way of looking at it. They do not care. The only person that can care about your health is you, because frankly, no institution is going to do it. When you look at the people that own your doctor's office, not your doctor. I mean, your doctor can be the nicest, bestest person in the world, but the people that own the practice that he works in, basically his boss, they don't care about your health. They prefer having 60 to 80% of Americans with some sort of long-term chronic disease, because that is a cash cow. That is what keeps the lights on. This is what allows them to receive tremendous return on their investment in buying those practices. Big Pharma does not want a cure. They want to have treatments. They do not want to teach you, and they do not want you to know how to fix chronic problems. I mean, frankly, what should have been known and was known at the time when Vioxx was out is, why aren't people having these chronic pains and these aches and pains? Oh, it was really glycation. There was a lot of glucose that was being built up in joints that was hardening up and becoming gray gunk. And it's amazing how quickly that gets repaired and gone when you switch to a low-carb diet. That was becoming well known during the Vioxx era. Yet you never heard about it, because there's no money in the cure. There's only money in the treatment, even if it's going to kill you. That's what you're facing. That's what we are facing as a country. Now, please, do not think that there's no hope. There is. There's actually a tremendous amount of hope to me. It's possible that one of the presidents coming up in the next few terms in my lifetime can get rid of direct-to-consumer advertising. That's possible. All it takes is an executive order, and it's off the air. See, the Supreme Court back in '83, when they allowed advertising, they didn't say that you had to sell or that advertisers had a constitutional right to it, just that they could do it. There's only 2 countries on the planet that allow direct-to-consumer advertising for pharmaceuticals, the United States and New Zealand. That's it. We can get rid of it. I mean, one president with some guts could just say, hey, we're cutting that out. And I know the news stations will be complaining and yelling at the high heaven because they're going to have a slash in their budgets of like 50% automatically. Who cares? Boo-hoo for them. They've been ignoring us for a long time. They'll make it up sooner or later. I'm not worried about them going out of business, but I am worried. But what's going to be nice is they'll be able to start objectively covering stuff again. I mean, frankly, watch tonight when you're watching a news program, and just put a little check mark every time you see a pharmaceutical ad, and realize, there was 12 ads, 6 of them were from Big Pharma. That's 50% of their budget. That's who's calling the tune. They're paying the piper. They're calling the tune. That's what it boils down to. And once you realize that, you're going to realize that they ain't looking after you. Nobody's looking after you. You got to look after yourself. Now, that's one aspect of it. It's possible for it to change, but I'm not holding my breath. But what is really cool to me, when I look at alternative health media, YouTube, X, etc., they have much more influence than you might think. And that is why government and everybody else is trying to shut them down with all these complaints about misinformation and all this other stuff. This is why the World Health Organization, again, who is funded by Big Food and Big Pharma, while they're pushing all this stuff to try to shut them down, because they know that somehow people were figuring out the truth when it came to COVID and vaccines. I mean, the initial push came out, and we're talking about all the influencers, all the news stories, government coercion and employer coercion forced about 75% of the U.S. to get the vaccines. But what was interesting to me is this. Then the news stories came out in the alternative media, not on the mainstream, but certainly in the alternative media, where they started talking about myocarditis and they started talking about possible side effects. And more it started getting out that there was true links that showed that these vaccines didn't stop you from getting it and weren't keeping you from spreading it. And when they rolled out the boosters, about 30% of the population got the boosters. And now we're down to about 6% that will get additional boosters. And these are people that are absolutely terrified of COVID, that still believe the news media. So people do get the word out eventually. It's not pretty, it's not clear how it all works, but they are really working like crazy to try to shut down all alternative sources for a reason, because it has an effect. There's a power that comes from somebody getting the word out that is completely objective. And it's powerful, and it makes a difference. That's why I created this channel, was to help get the word out to other people. And if you like this message, please hit the like, subscribe button. Put comments down below if you agree. If you disagree, please keep the comments respectful. I don't mind it. I do not mind respectful dissent at all. And I try to put out a new message about every 2 days, at least twice a week. This is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore. I will talk to you again soon.